Yeah. I'm William Lee Cowden, MD. I was born and raised in Pecos, Texas, out in West Texas, and have two sisters, and we were raised on a ranch during the weekend and lived in town on weekdays and drove back and forth on Friday evenings to the ranch and back into town on the Sunday evenings. And it was quite a venture, living two lifestyles, basically, the city boy and the country boy. And I guess it was in high school. In high school, I figured out that I really wanted to go into the sciences, and I thought I might become a teacher, a scientist, a professor at a college or something. So I went into college with that in mind and had a biology major. And after I was in college for a couple of years, I realized that I wasn't quite on the right path. My roommate was a pre-med student, and all the guys that we hung around were pre-med students. And one day my roommate said, "Lee, I think you should be a doctor." And I thought, I really never thought about that. Maybe I should. And I said, well, how would I determine whether I should be a doctor or not? He said, well, why don't you get a job as a orderly at the hospital and see if you like it. So I got the job as an orderly, and I liked it a lot. And so I changed my major and started studying for the pre-med courses. And after I did that for the 4 years, I realized that I didn't have the grade point that was necessary, because for the first 2 years I was kind of not fully focused on what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And so I didn't get into medical school the first time that I applied. And that was really a blessing, because when I didn't get into medical school, I signed up to do a master's program at the college, and took medical school biochemistry and medical school physiology as master's degree courses. And I took them because I wanted to learn that material. And I studied hard, and I learned it well and made A's. And the next year when I got into medical school, I took the medical school biochemistry and medical school physiology again, and I really got it that time. And so those two courses have become the basis for what I do in integrative medicine. That's the orthomolecular medicine approach, understanding the physiology and biochemistry of the body. Went to medical school at University of Texas, Houston, and went there for 3 years. I went through the rapid track program, because by that time I was, by my perception, already a year behind, having failed to get into medical school the first time I applied. And then I went on to do residency in St. Louis University Medical Group up in St. Louis, and I did that in internal medicine. I did an internship in internal medicine and residency in internal medicine there at St. Louis University Hospital Group. And then after that, I did a conjoined cardiology and critical care fellowship at St. Louis University Hospital Group and St. John's Mercy Medical Center in St. Louis. And another fellow and I were the first two to ever do that program, that conjoined critical care and cardiology program there. And I really wanted to learn how to take care of very ill patients, and I really got the opportunity to do that in that program. Rotated through cardiothoracic surgery and invasive cardiology with catheterizations and balloon angioplasties and pacemaker insertions, but also rotated through renal dialysis and the intensive care units, and got a lot of experience in pediatrics with the pediatric intensive care. And so I had a very broad base when I came out of training. After I finished my formal training there in St. Louis, I joined this fellow that went through the training program at the same time as I did, and set up a partnership practice there in St. Louis. And we did critical care and cardiology together, and we were on staff at 7 hospitals and rounded on patients at most of those hospitals every day. And it was quite an ordeal that year that I did that. We were on call every other day during the week and every other weekend all weekend. And when you're on call, you had at least a 50% chance of spending the entire night in the hospital somewhere. So after a year of that, I decided two things. I decided that if I kept up that lifestyle, it'd probably kill me. And the other thing I decided is that I was intervening way too far downstream on my patients, because I would help the patients, in most cases, get out of the intensive care unit, get out on the hospital floors, finally get out of the hospital. But then 2 or 3 months later, they're back in the hospital with the same illnesses because they haven't changed their lifestyles and their diet and everything else. And so that was discouraging to see that. And I thought, I need to change to preventive medicine and preventive cardiology. And so after a year of the intensive work, I got out of the hospital business and started seeing patients as outpatients and actually teaching them how to do what I was already doing for myself and my family. I really felt that I was not doing what I was supposed to do with my patients, because I knew by experience what was going to be better for me and my family, and I should be doing that same thing for my patients. When I was in medical school in Houston, I became ill with respiratory illnesses, sinusitis, and then later bronchitis and pneumonia. And it was probably because of all the allergens that were in the air down in Houston, all the mold and fungus and grass and weeds and trees. And I went to get advice from the chairman of the allergy and immunology department first, followed his advice, got progressively worse. Then I went to the chairman of the ear, nose, and throat department, followed his advice, got progressively worse. And then I went to the chairman of the pulmonary department, followed his advice, and got progressively worse. And so, fortunately, my wife's grandmother came to visit us, and she was a school teacher and self-taught nutritionist. She took me over to the health food store and got me on some vitamins, minerals, and herbs, and I got well. And I thought, my goodness, I need to learn what this old woman knows here, and I need to take with a grain of salt everything I learned in medical school after this. So I started reading in my spare time on the things that I thought would be of use to me later in life and in practice, and that was orthomolecular medicine, which is the use of high-dose vitamins and minerals for the purpose of healing difficult physical conditions. And then I studied Western herbology, and then I studied Eastern herbology, and then I studied homeopathy, and then I studied fixed magnetic therapies, and then pulse magnetic therapies, and then photonic therapies, laser therapies, and other light therapies, and color therapies, and on, frequency therapies. And so I just kept learning and studying. And so that's, was being applied as I learned it to my family, my friends, my close associates, and I saw great results with that. But then at that critical point after a year of critical care medicine and cardiology private practice, I realized that I could no longer in good conscience do for my patients something differently than what I was doing for myself and my family, which was better. I'm very pleased to have accepted the position of the chairman of the Scientific Advisory Board, because I've had a passion for teaching doctors what I've learned over the years for many years. And I feel that I have very much to offer, both of what I know myself as well as what I've learned from other practitioners and those doctors that I know that I can bring into the organization to teach what they know and share what they know, and become mentors for other doctors that want to learn those things and want to apply those things in their patients. Doctors that are willing to be consultants for the patients that are given no help and given no hope. I think Integrative can make a huge impact in the health world and the world in the practice of medicine worldwide, because Integrative will be teaching doctors how to implement things that can not just cover up the symptoms of disease or cut out body parts, but it actually can heal the human body using the techniques and principles that were given to us by God. The principles of diet and nutrition and lifestyle, and the principles of resolving toxic emotions that negatively impact physical and human health. If I were talking to a doctor who is presently practicing conventional Western allopathic medicine, who thought that they wanted to transform their practices into an integrative medicine practice, I would say do it with baby steps. Do it slowly and progressively. Don't make a huge leap, because sometimes that causes such trauma to the practice, so much chaos that the practice won't survive. So I would suggest that they follow the steps that I took when I was transforming my practice. What I did when I moved to Dallas to practice was to start out with pretty much an allopathic practice, and then once I had a decent patient base, and I was using nutritional therapies and herbal therapies and homeopathic therapies with those patients. But I was taking Medicare assignment, I was taking Medicaid assignment, I was taking HMO and PPO work, and I was billing insurance companies, and And I had to do that initially just to get the practice going, to survive, if you will. But then what happened after a time is I saw that I was becoming a bank for the insurance companies and the government, and I thought that was not appropriate. So I started having patients pay cash at time of service for their office visits, and if they had to have other expensive procedures done, then I would bill the insurance companies or the government for those things. And then I would provide the patient with a super bill that they could receive reimbursement back from the government or from the insurance companies for the office visits. And then I would ask the patients after every visit after that how long it took them to get reimbursed. And typically it was about 5 weeks for the patient to get reimbursed from the government or from the insurance company, and it was about 6 months for me to get reimbursed from the same insurance company or from the same governmental agency. And so I realized that I need to phase that out. So I did that over time. I started collecting more cash at time of service for the services that I rendered, and giving the patient the super bill to submit to the insurance companies, to the government, to get the money back that they needed to reimburse themselves. And that was a very slow, stepwise, progressive thing. It wasn't so harsh and drastic and dramatic on the practice. And I judged when I needed to make the next step based on the length of the waiting list for patients to get into the office. If the waiting list got less than a month, for sure I needed to not make any forward steps. If the waiting list got up to 3 or 4 months, then I said, okay, I can easily, safely change the reimbursement process. And I know that some of those patients, even though they'll be stressed a little bit about having to put the money up front, will still be able to do it because they'll know they'll get the money back from the insurance company and Medicare probably before their credit card ever becomes due. I've been happily married for many years, and we have 2 grown children, Lisa and Heath. And Heath has a wife and 3 children, so I'm a grandfather of 3 grandsons, and very proud of all of them. They're great kids, and they've really been a blessing to my life. The other advice that I would give to a practitioner that was allopathic that wanted to transform their practice into integrative medicine is to learn the things that they think would be useful, apply those first to themselves and their close family members, and then to their closest friends, and then to their closest patients, and finally to the rest of their patients. And to only use the things that they're convinced are working. The field of integrative medicine is filled with all kinds of things. Some of them are very sound scientifically, some of them are not so sound scientifically. So it's very wise for a practitioner to only use those things that they can see clearly that are working. There's a lot of science behind integrative medicine, and when a doctor says, well, it's not scientifically based, I say, do you know that less than 20% of what's used in allopathic hospitals in the United States has been studied by controlled clinical trials? And most of them don't know that. That 80% of what's used in U.S. hospitals and allopathic hospitals has not been studied with a controlled clinical trial. And the percentage of things that have been studied in integrative medicine by controlled clinical trials is about 15%. So it's very close to what it is for allopathic medicine.